When I was living way up in the Appalachian Mountains, I'm in the foothills now. My house sat back in a holler on top of a hill. I was surrounded by woods in every single direction. While I could hear the people's dogs that lived toward the bottom of the holler and had one neighbor to the east, it was very secluded. If I walked off my porch, I would be in the woods within 8 or 9 steps in total. I like to walk with my dog in the woods and just enjoy the beauty, solitude, and stillness of the place. One day, my dog and I were walking through the woods and came upon the severed neck/head of a doe. It was like someone had slit its throat and just kept going until it was decapitated. There was no blood trail. It was completely fresh. The poor thing's eyes were open, and there were no flies or bugs to be found. There was no smell either, and the kitchen knife was sticking out of its neck at a weird angle. It was a crude, dull, shitty old plastic-handled kitchen knife. People do not hunt in those woods. These woods are private property, and even if they did hunt here, you don't kill does. You certainly do not kill them at the time of the year when they are fawning. That, and the fact that I never, ever heard gunshots. I would definitely have heard them, given how fresh a kill this was. It's not like you can just sneak up on one and kill it in close quarters. There were also no signs of a puncture wound from an arrow, which rules out that theory too. My dog became very alert, not straying from my side, and a feeling of unease washed over me. This was no more than about 150 feet away from my front porch. I went back there the next day, and the head/neck and the knife were gone. There was no trace of any of it. I don't know if I'm conveying how unnerving it was, but I can see that scene like it was yesterday now, 10 years later. I actually always felt uncomfortable being there alone, especially at night. It just felt like I was being watched. When I was a kid, maybe around 9 years old, I had a nightmare that would haunt me later in real life. I was lost in the dark basement of my grandmother's house. It was pitch black and I could not find the light switch. Suddenly, the bathroom light flicked on by itself. I approached and saw the toilet filled with blood. Leading away from it were wads of blood-soaked toilet paper, arranged like footprints. They trailed around a corner into a large room that we were never ever allowed to enter. In the bathroom, a round, elaborately carved Chinese-style mirror caught my eye, something I had never seen before. The walls, too, were an eerie yellow instead of the usual white. Curious, I followed the bloody footprints to the big room and found the light switch. The room looked normal, but the footprint stopped at the door. Just as I stepped inside, the door slammed shut behind me, and the lights began flickering violently. Strange, muffled noises filled the air, sounding muffled and terrifying. I woke up, terrified. Fast forward 20 years later. I rented a basement apartment, cheap, perfect for my needs. When I first used the bathroom, I noticed the yellow walls and that strange round Chinese mirror, the one from my childhood nightmare. I told myself it was just a creepy coincidence, though I often wondered, what if someone died here years ago and my dream was a warning or something? Then, one day, while doing pull-ups, the bar snapped on one side, rotted wood gave way, and it slammed into my nose. Blood poured everywhere. I stumbled into that eerie bathroom, frantically grabbing toilet paper, dropping wads onto the floor that soaked up the blood. I leaned over the toilet, swallowing blood to avoid choking. My reflection in the mirror was ghastly, pale as a ghost, shaking, sick to my stomach. I vomited into the toilet, which was quickly filling with blood. I was weak, scared, and realized I might have lost too much blood. As I staggered toward my bedroom, I froze. I had left bloody footprints trailing behind me, just like in my nightmare. The terror came rushing back. I knew I needed the hospital. At the ER, I looked like a victim of a brutal accident. Blood was just everywhere. They rushed me past the 6-hour wait into a specialist care. Without painkillers, they cauterized and realigned my nose, burning the blood vessel shut with electricity. The pain was unbearable, but relief flooded over me. I might have actually died without treatment. Even after, the bathroom and mirror unsettled me. Sometimes I wonder if it was a warning, or a glimpse into a past life, or maybe a time loop. I don't know what to believe. One night, After a weekend shift, I came home and switched on my bedroom light. It flickered uncontrollably. I turned it off, switched on a lamp, but the feeling of dread stuck with me. I packed up my essentials and moved in with a friend immediately. I found out later that people with full bodysuits, goggles, and respirators were going into the house with dozens of fan systems and plastic sheets to air it out, as it turned out that behind the walls in that basement, there was a deadly type of black mold growing with absurd concentrations of toxins in the air. That feeling of dread definitely saved my life. A guy that I know went on a honeymoon with his wife to Haiti. As they were driving down a road, they saw what looked like an accident ahead. Dead bodies and luggage were around the car. His bride told him to slow down and help, but he carried on. Looking into his rearview mirror, he saw the dead bodies stand up. He then saw several people come out of the nearby fields wearing masks. Had that happen to me once. I lived in a pretty rural area when I was a kid. When I was going for my driver's license, my friend said we should go up the mountains to get some practice in. Those roads are shit, sharp bends, loose gravel if there is gravel, mud everywhere. He thought it would be good if I started on the worst roads possible, get used to unexpected things happening. Now, these tracks run over land owned by crazy hippies. The leader of them claims to have studied under Crowley. Harmless, but a bit weird. I went to school with a few of them. We asked for permission, no problem, as long as we didn't do any damage or cause trouble. I've got another story about them, if you want it. After a few hours driving around, we decided to head home, and tried to call my parents to have dinner for us. Up these mountains, there is very little phone reception. It's either amazing or non-existent. Guess how our reception was at the time. But not to worry, we will get reception in a few minutes, so we keep moving. Like I said, these roads are shit, and you often get idiots in tricked out cars fucking around up here, so we passed a few wrecked and abandoned cars. Then we came upon a car that still had the engine running, crashed into a ditch just ahead of us. I wanted to stop, but my friend convinced me to keep going until we got phone reception to call for help. I dropped down the gears so we could see into the car as we passed. There was a woman slumped over the wheel, glass everywhere. When we had rolled past, I started moving up the gears. I glanced into the rearview mirror and saw her get out of the car and start waving at the forest. I thought, the fuck, and switched down the gears to see what was happening. About a dozen guys emerged from the forest, all in masks. I never moved up the gears faster in my life as these guys ran towards us. One actually managed to reach us and started hammering on the window. We kept moving until we were well off that fucking mountain. The cops did not believe us. A few weeks later, I was in a bar when one of the hippies I went to school with came in. He saw me and came over to say hi. I was a little worried, since this happened on their land, and we had a previous run-in with weird shit. He started talking about how some guys had shown up a few weeks earlier, maybe 2 months ago, asking if they could camp there and really get back in touch with Mother Earth. Hippie said fine, and everything was going well until maybe 2 weeks earlier, when one of the hippie kids came running into their camp, hysterical, talking about the black man in the woods who tried to take her away. The whole hippie camp saddled up and went to investigate. They found the other crowd's camp and their extensive weapons collection. The hippies drove them out and burned what was left. Never told the cops. I used to be a deep-sea crab fisherman. I lived on a 12-man boat for weeks at a time, fishing in the Atlantic just south of New Zealand. Because we were so far south and we fished mostly during the winters, it was nighttime for almost 18 hours a day, and when it got too dark and cold, we would have to sit the day out and work indoors. During one of those particularly icy and dark days, I was sitting around with some other guys talking to the oldest guy on the boat. Everyone used to call him Smiles because he was a very bitter guy. I still liked him though. We were making conversation to avoid getting too bored and sea crazy. We started talking about the worst experiences of our lives. Smiles decided to mention the time that he went overboard. Smiles said it was years and years ago, when he was about 23 years old. He was out fishing with his father and brother on a little 4-man boat. He told us that a storm rolled in from land, which is very rare, and trapped him out at sea in the downpour and huge waves. Eventually, his boat succumbed to the pounding and started to go down. He completely lost sight of his brother and father, and was pushed down into the water by the waves above. He said he was about 20 feet down when he felt his back pressed up against the side of an underwater mountain. Of course, this did not make sense, because he was fishing over an extremely deep point in the ocean. South of New Zealand is extremely deep, black water. Smiles kept talking. He said that he pushed himself off the underwater mountain and towards the surface. When he was swimming back up to the air above, he looked back to see this mountain. Smiles made it clear that the water was very, very dark and murky, but he said that even so, he was sure he saw what he did. He told us that when he looked back, he saw that the mountain he had pushed himself off was moving just slightly, and that there were two glowing points far deeper in the water that were on either side. Smiles was never one to tell a lie, and he looked at me right in the eye when he said that what he saw was alive. What he thought was a mountain was some sort of leviathan. He said that it was so huge that his entire field of view was taken up by its face alone. He told us its face was almost all teeth, with red glowing eyes mounted on a face more terrifying than Satan's mother. Smile said that it was so huge that its neck went down into the ocean for at least 1,000 feet. He could not even say what the rest of its body must have looked like. Smiles was visibly sweating at this point. Of course, he went on to say that he was absolutely terrified. He said that he was already scared out of his mind to be overboard in a storm, but when he realized that thing was alive, he was so scared he almost froze. He obviously got back to the capsized boat and managed to get back to the shore alive, though scared out of his mind and half frozen from the water. None of us ever found out if he was telling the truth, but how could we anyway? I had trouble sleeping that night with the knowledge that I was in the same ocean that Smile spoke about. I have had nightmares about his tale. I really hope he made it all up. I've heard that we know more about the surface of the moon than the bottom of the ocean, and that leaves a lot of space for freaky as fuck sea creatures. Multiple Potter here. I've told the story before but didn't save it, so I'm having to type it out again from memory. My friend has a ranch in deep South Texas that he hunts on. He invites me and 5 other friends to go hunting with him down there for the weekend. Everyone brings their Doe rifles, semi-autos and case hogs, and whatever guns we want to shoot for fun. We arrive at ranch in the early afternoon. The camp consists of 2 RV-like things, though not self-propelled and just lined with beds, and a main cabin that has the kitchen, food, and a bathroom. Nighttime falls. We decide to build a fire with a pear burner. One friend brought some steaks in a cooler and decided to cook them over our open fire. Suddenly, we hear coyote sounds. Sounded like 30 of them, but knowing how much noise they make, it was probably a dozen or so. We are chilling, having a few beers, listening to the wildlife. Hear one of the coyotes yelp, followed by a bunch of growling and snarling. Hear a few more yelps, with a little less growling each time. Everything goes dead quiet. We all think it's weird, but don't make anything of it. Head to bed at about 11 p.m. We are getting up and hunting around 4 a.m. the next morning. Morning rolls around, go out to the spot. By noon, I haven't seen shit except for a few bunnies and a roadrunner. Decide to head back to camp. See one of the bros got a decent-sized 8-point, has it hanging by a winch, halfway through skinning it. Once he's done skinning, I help him hoist the carcass over the walk-in freezer to let it age and drip dry for a couple days. The freezer is built like a vault. I doubt anything short of a breaching charge or jaws of life could break into it. Everyone is back in camp by 3 p.m. One guy bitches that camp is too luxurious, says we should go in the mesquite forest and camp there for the night. Well, okay. Load up the tents, sleeping bag, fire starter kit, food, 1 long gun each, compass, map, etc. Don't want anything to happen to anybody since we are 3 hours by car from the nearest semblance of civilization, which is more like a town of about 50 Mexicans and an old racist white guy. Find a good spot out in the middle of nowhere, a good hour's walk away from camp. It's a clearing in the forest. Set up camp right in the middle of it, 50 feet in any direction from the nearest tree line. We build a fire. Friend had brought his guitar and started playing various tunes on it. Coyotes are back in force again, making noise, doing whatever the fuck it is that they do. Same as last night. There was yelping, followed by growling, etc. Everything goes stone quiet again. A coyote appears out of the forest, sprinting like a scolded dog, runs right through the middle of camp and back into the forest on the other side. The thing left a hell of a blood trail. We are all kinda spooked, but we regain our composure. Out of nowhere, smell a god-awful stench. It's like if you mix piss, vomit, and sulfur all together. One of the guys, named Jeff, gets up, grabs his maglite and Mossberg, and starts following the blood trail to the tree line. Jeff, it's not a good idea to track a wounded animal at night. Let's wait till morning. Stop being a pussy. Alex, Johnny, grab your torches and boomsticks and come with me. Alex grabs his Tantal, and Johnny grabs his Waff and Works AK. They grab their flashlights and follow him. About an hour goes by and no noise. No sign of Jeff, Johnny, or Alex. We are about to go in after them when Johnny and Alex appear. Where's Jeff? They look confused, look behind them, and get really startled expressions on their faces. Dude, he was right behind us like 30 seconds ago, I swear. We start calling out for Jeff. We all decide he's just fucking with us. 2 more hours go by, still no Jeff. We all grab flashlights and our guns and decide to do a search party. We're spread out, but close enough to keep tabs on everybody so we don't lose anyone. An hour of searching goes by and no sign of Jeff. Head back to camp, thinking he will either be there or we will wait until morning and search for him. As we get closer to camp, notice that stench from earlier. It's getting stronger as we get closer. By the time that we get back, the fire is barely glowing and the smell is almost unbearable. See Jeff by the fire, standing with his back to us, head down and kind of swaying like he's dizzy. We get about 30 feet away from Jeff. Andy shouts, "Jeff, you son of a bitch, where the fuck did you go?" Jeff swings around, arms flailing lazily like he's just letting them dangle. Make out a mouth that looks like the same size as Baraka from Mortal Kombat. Eyes are glowing a faint amber color. Guys, that isn't Jeff. 5 rifles and a shotgun get leveled at his head. Identify yourself now. Who are you? What do you want? Where's Jeff? Where is Jeff? Hear a low, guttural voice. Where is Jeff? More like a zombie, but I mean, it's the best you guys are gonna get, sorry. One of the guys freaks out and pulls the trigger on his Ithaca. 1 ounce slug nails the thing right in the forehead. Its head snaps back, but it is still standing. The gunshot startles everybody, as well as the fact that it did not go down. We unload on it. 2 AK-47s, 12-gauge shotgun, an AR-15, and an SKS all in unison, firing thunderously to end that thing's existence. The thing goes down, but we keep firing. Near the end of our fusillade, a giant dust cloud has obscured our target. The dust settles. There is a body lying on the ground. Suddenly, it props itself up into a crab walk-like position. It starts running towards us in a crab walk. We start to scatter. It gets 15 feet away from us and launches itself 5 feet off of the ground, lands on 2 feet, and makes a beeline for the trees. As it disappears into the brush, it's howling "Where is Jeff?" just like before, and yipping and barking like a pack of coyotes. We grab our guns, compass and map, and fuck off back to camp. We dead sprint all the way there. Nobody says a single word on the way back. We get inside the main building of the camp, barricade the door, and try to sleep it off until morning, taking shifts, staying up on guard duty. At around 4 a.m., I hear what sounds like a car door being ripped off the frame, followed by a thud. Everybody pops up and grabs the firearm nearest to them and their flashlight. Turn on the outside floodlight and see that the truck is fine. We decide to wait until it's completely light to even step foot outside. 8 a.m. rolls around and the sun is completely up, so we emerge from our cabin, fueled by coffee and breakfast. We're patrolling the perimeter in some kind of formation, though none of us were police or military. We get around the side of the main cabin and see that the deep freezer's door is laying about 5 feet away from where it should be, also taken off its hinges. There is a blood trail leading from the freezer to the forest. The deer carcass is gone. We decide to load up, get in the truck, and drive around looking for Jeff. As we are all about to embark on our quest, Jeff appears from the tree line, carrying his shotgun and flashlight. It's broad daylight, so we clearly say that it is Jeff. His clothes are torn to fuck, and there is dry blood on his face and shirt. We all rush to him and ask him what's going on, asking if he's hurt. He shrugs it off and starts walking towards camp. Andy is visibly pissed. "Jeff, what the fuck happened? You scared the shit out of us." Jeff turns, looks Andy in the eye, and says, "Stop being a pussy," the exact same way Jeff did before disappearing off into the forest. We get a chill but shrug it off. We load up and drive home. The whole 7 hours drive back, Jeff does not say a word. Pretty sure I brought a crab-walking skinwalker back to civilization. Hey, hope you've enjoyed the story so far. If you want to hear more, make sure to subscribe, like the video, and leave a comment because it lets YouTube know you like the content and helps more people to see these videos. My next big goal for the channel is 100,000 subscribers, and as a celebration, I will be doing a Q&A video once we hit that goal. Thank you, and back to the stories. This is nothing super spooky, but ended up cutting our adventure short. Me and my friend decided to go check out some buildings in a major city in the deep south. We grab our kit and handguns and go to look in some old abandoned Section 8 housing, bad neighborhood. Decide to have a friend pick us up and drop us off to avoid having our truck stolen. We get dropped off. Head into abandoned housing project. Mask on. We start looking around, admiring the graffiti, and checking rooms for abandoned memorabilia. Find some rooms that look set up to be a drug den, but hasn't been used in a while. After clearing the first floor, we go down to the basement/maintenance area to check for homeless people. It's hot as fuck here, and the basement is usually cooler. Go down into the basement. Horrible smell. Check all around. Find a decomposing guy with a caved-in face. Paranoia immediately kicks in. I refuse to go down for a murder I did not commit. Second thought. Did anyone see us come in here? Fuck me running. Tell friend we are getting the fuck out of here. Don't touch anything on the way out. We get up to the first floor and start to head outside. There is a lowrider sitting at the curb in front of the complex. Back up into the shadows and go hide in the office. Call Ride and tell them what's up. Hear a crash a couple of floors up. Oh shit. Tell the ride to get to the rendezvous as soon as fucking possible. We book it out of the complex like the devil himself is after us. Run a couple of blocks and check to see if anyone is following. It's all clear. Meet up with our ride. We tell everything that happened. Agree to keep quiet. Friend completely quits exploring after that. Traumatized. I've never been back out. I refuse to go without a free buddy system. It's been years now. I sold most of my kit when moving around at some point, but I'd like to go again if I can get a team together. Delmont Forest, CA Conspiracies. Tonight, my friends and I left the bar to smoke a joint out on the street. It was on top of a parking garage that we met Vicky. She had just left the hospital, recovering from alcohol withdrawal symptoms. We began smoking cigarettes and talking about her life as a homeless person. She told us about the Delmont Forest, an extensive area that began at the back of our local shopping mall. We had always seen plenty of no trespassing warnings, and we are often chased out by security for smoking there as teens. We knew plenty of homeless people panhandle nearby. What we didn't know of was so sinister. Vicky told us about the disappearances, how she lived in that forest for 2 years among sexual criminals, thieves, killers, and crazies. She told us about the snuff films that were made at a donkey farm in the woods, the bestiality films, how wealthy elites would drug girls on heroin as young as 14 and drop them in the forest after they were finished with them. Vicky told us that it was easy to make people disappear there. Her conscious mind weighed heavy with the pain of the forest and began reporting to the FBI in hopes that it could end. I can't remember what she said it was called by the native people. I believe the Forest of Lost Souls. It's so creepy to imagine that these things could be happening at the outskirts of a normal town, Monterey, California. Does anyone else have stories of the dredges of society from knowledgeable transient people? I just didn't know who to talk to about this tonight. I interviewed a homeless guy about this. He told me about a 100-year-old, never used, and long abandoned tunnels for our planned subway system. He mentioned men in black suits and sunglasses chasing him outside, warning him to keep his mouth shut. Holy shit, I have been to the forest that OP is talking about. This was about 2 years ago now. My friend Chris and I were trying to advertise for a show our band was doing at some local joint when we met this homeless guy. I don't remember his name, so we will go with Jeff. Anyway, we had been out passing flyers around town and jamming a little on acoustic guitars, and we were getting tired. It was then that Jeff came up to us. This guy did not look like the typical homeless guy. He actually wore some khaki shorts, a pair of chucks, and a pretty fresh-looking Coheed and Cambria shirt. He was also clean-shaven, but we could tell this dude was fucking wrecked. He smelled like straight bourbon and looked like he had just done all of the cocaine. But the guy was pretty rad. He asked if he could jam with us and was actually a fucking blues master. We spent a while jamming and shooting the shit with him. After a while, he just sort of brought up the Delmont Forest. He pretty much explained almost exactly what the OP said about sex criminals, druggies, murderers, schizos, rich perverts, and all of the insanity of hell conveniently located in one forest, known as the Forest of Wandering Souls. He said it was some translation from some tribe or some shit. Since I grew up around that area, I had heard rumors about this place. It was always just loose accounts, something akin to the stories of the deep web. After we had parted ways with Jeff, I told Chris about the rumors I heard confirming the story. He thought the shit was absolutely disgusting and did not want anything to do with it. I, however, had always wanted to do a bit of investigation into this rumor. I am the type of guy that fancies urban exploration, especially if it involves spoopy stuff. So I decided to ask Chris to join me. I wanted to get Jeff to take us to this place. I don't know why, but I needed to confirm that this place was real, so I asked him to come with me. Holy shit, your translation is exactly what she told me. She said it was kept out of the news due to the town relying on tourism for revenue. Years ago, I stayed near to Delmont Forest on a photographic assignment to capture the essence of the reported subculture that existed there. Of course, I'd heard the stories from a few loose tongues at local bars after I'd softened them up with some cheap bourbon. However, what eluded me was the actual location of the forest folk, and there was no real idea of when the unusual events were due to happen. Through blind chance, I met a guy called Juan. He spoke very broken English, but was able to tell me about the structure and hierarchy of the various groups in the forest. I asked him whether a meeting could be arranged with the group leaders, but he was dubious as to whether they would go for this. Nonetheless, he said he'd try. I did not hear back from him for a few days, and was starting to think he'd flaked out on me. However, one evening, there was a knock at my motel door. It was Juan. He was covered in bruises, but told me that that was the price of an audience with the group's leader. I apologized for putting him in this predicament and offered him some cash as a gesture, but he waved it away and laughed. "You don't understand, senor," Juan said. "The man from Delmont, he say yes." And I included these because they were interesting, but both of them didn't finish their fucking stories, you fucking knobs, so I apologize for that. You'll just have to fill in the blanks with your own mind. In the middle of the night, in 4th grade, at one of my best friend's birthday sleepovers, we decided to sneak out the back and get on the roof. Boys will be boys, right? The details don't matter too much after telling the story so many times, but eventually, there's 4 or 5 of us boys sitting on the edge of a flat, 1-story roof. Arizona houses are built with flat roofs often. Well, my legs are dangling off the edge. Someone is standing, someone else pissing into the bushes from the roof. Yet, even though everyone is doing different things, one of my friends points down the end of the neighborhood street, which we have a straight, clear view of. Beyond the 2 street lamps, there is a 4-way stop intersection with houses on each corner, dimly lit. Out of nowhere, a single red light comes into view and baffles us. It looks like a car taillight, but there is only one, and it is on the street. Yet something is very strange about the way it's moving. On top of this, it's 2 or 3 in the morning. At first, we are all looking at this red light in bafflement, but then it became something so much more. We literally saw what can only be described as the devil on fire. In the most childlike fashion, this devil took shape, forming out of this red dot light. It donned a fully red suit with horns, pitchfork, cape, and spiked tail. It was representative of my greatest fear of the time, being raised Christian, and having been reading Jude and Revelations recently with the same group of friends. But this motherfucker was on fire. Walking on the street connected to the driveway, connected to the house that we were sitting on top of. It was coming our way with what I could only feel was nefarious intentions. We straight booked it right down that ladder. Some jumped into the backyard, and back inside, locking the sliding door faster than I could do anything else. This story is true. I want to find my friends again to confirm that we saw the same thing 20 years later.